Hi, I'm Kyla Gelber, and this is my communication in your community speech. The community I'm going to be talking about is the queer community. As a queer person and a lesbian, there are many ways that I choose to convey this identity to whoever I'm around, and that changes a lot depending on context. So to talk about that context, I'm going to talk about the conversation and conformity orientation of chapter 7.3. Um, this describes the amount of conformity and the amount of conversation happening in your home dynamic. So, for example, in my literal home dynamic where I live with some of my family members, we have a more protective dynamic, which is lower in conversation and higher in conformity. But with the people I consider kin, my chosen family, my friends who I consider family, and my favorite family members, um, we have a more pluralistic dynamic because there's higher conversation and a lower requirement of conformity. Um, so the slang that I use, my vocal tone, my vocal inflection, how I'm going to talk about politics depends on who I'm with, and how much I'm wanting to express my full identity, depending on the context. It's very different sitting around the campfire with, my friends and maybe my aunt and my brother than, if I'm going to my grandparents' house for a nice little visit. I might present as somewhat different in those two situations. The next thing I want to talk about is the privileges disadvantages dialectic, in chapter 8.3, which states that in cross cultural communication, we all have our own privileges and our own disadvantages. Um, and with that comes a lot of intersectionality. For example, I have the privilege of being white, being Jewish, but being white, um, and the disadvantage, depending on the situation, it can be a disadvantage of being queer. But a lot of the people in my fellow queer people in my community um, also face disadvantages because of their race or their level of ability. And so there's intersectionality there, and there can be solidarity there. Um, and it's something that's, I feel, often brought up in the queer community, is how can we like reach across um, into different groups outside of the queer community, because all different groups are represented within it. So it's good when solidarity is shown throughout, and for everybody. So yeah, some of the ways that I communicate as a part of my community include, like I said, my tone and my slang. Um, I use a lot of slang that I inherited from watching drag. That's pretty common within this community, and we can express support to each other in public by, giving like aimed compliments at stylization, accessories, and just finding joy in campiness and tackiness and all of that, is the most common way that I notice my community communicating with each other out in the world. But obviously, there's a lot over social media as well. So, yes, conversation and conformity orientation and privileges, disadvantages dialectic in the queer community. Thank you.